Hey guys, this is Daniel. So in today's video, we will look at how to handle inconsistent outputs, or in other words, inconsistent objects to create something consistent at the end. So here is the problem. So let's assume you get an output like this, and it's basically a set of answers within a form. So for example, from Typeform or Google Forms or Jot Forms. It doesn't really matter. But the issue we are facing here is the fact that one answer is collection and the other answer is array. And at the end of the day, you want to produce a nice text string, which will look something like this. Question 1, colon, and all the answers to that question. So these. And question 2, and answers to the question 2, right? So these. And as I said, the issue is that in one case you get collection, in the other you get array. And the question is how to solve this problem in an elegant manner so the scenario always works. And for that we will need to introduce magic with setting and getting variables, router, iterations, etc. But at the end you will see it's not that difficult. So let's get to it. Before I start, I want to show you a real piece of code from, say, programming or it's a JSON and how you usually proceed. So if you code something, usually like set variables, right? So you set a variable here, then you reuse it down the road, and you kind of go step by step by setting and getting variables and working with them. And you can actually introduce something similar in make/Integromat when you build complex scenarios. And that's going to be my main message to show you how to implement that trick. So let's first focus on the answers where the answer type is collection, right? So the first one. And in this case, it's pretty difficult because you can see that these keys are inconsistent and it's not an array, so you cannot really use iterator in make to access these answers. And imagine it could be 1, 2, other, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, other, you just don't know what the number is. So how to get around it? So first of all, we will use router here. Then we will still need to iterate through the form array, which holds the answers, right? So we gotta do that. We can actually do it before the router. Okay, so we'll go like this. We will iterate through the form. And now we can run it and see what happens. So now we got two bundles, right? One is the collection-based one, and the other is the array-based one. So now let's try to solve this problem: how to get all these values while having weird keys, right, in that collection. So for that, we will use keys function. We can set a variable. We can call it keys, and then we will use keys for the answers, and that's it. And now watch what happens. So for the first bundle, we got 1, 2, other, which is fine. For the second bundle, we got 0, 1. Now, let's solve the first bundle first, right? Because it's a collection, so you gotta work towards getting the actual values, not the keys. So after you receive these keys, you will see it's an array. So what you can do now is you can use array iterator. You can iterate through those keys and then see what happens. So now you have 1, 2, other, but it doesn't give you the results, right? So to make it easier, we can set another variable. We can call it actual answers, and you will use get function to get the key values from answers array based on the value of the key. So let's run it now and see what happens. Right, so we are finally getting the actual answers, blue, yellow, other. Let's also see what's coming for the answer, which is actual array. And you see now it's empty because you cannot really get those values there. So we will need to handle this differently than this one, which we are solving now. Okay, so let's now make sure that from this moment on, we are only processing the collection-based answers. So I'm going to cheat a little bit here, but I know that my answer type is collection, so I can just introduce a simple filter here, equal to collection only. Let's say collections only. So I don't get those empty values at the end, which we were getting for the array-based answers, right? So let's run it again and see. Yep. Now what happened is that we only got the key values from that collections-based answer. So now we need to do two last steps, and one is to aggregate the actual answers, right? So this one, and this one. And the other is to set another variable at the end. So for aggregating that text, we can use text aggregator, and the source module will be either the iterator or set variable. It doesn't really matter in this case. So we can go for iterator with the ID of 5. And in that case, we want to now get closer to our output, right? So we want to see this at the end. So question underscore index and then the actual values. So we can do the same here. For now, we will be just aggregating this, and we will be using separator, comma, and that's it, comma space. So let's run it now and see what happens. So now we have the answers aggregated, and as a final step, we will set a variable, which will be collection-based answers, and now we will say question underscore bundle order position from the first iterator, because that will be actually the index of that question, colon the answers, right? Okay, so here is our text, and the first part is done. So now let's handle the situation where the answers are arrays. That's going to be easier because we don't have to mess around with keys, etc. So it's going to be faster. We will introduce another route here. And that will be called arrays only. We can set a filter saying that the answer array must be at least one item long. Then we will simply iterate through those answers. And we can see what happens. Right, so we have 42, 52. So it's all good. Now we just need to aggregate this into a text string, and it will be very similar to what we did here. So let's use again the text aggregator, and we'll be aggregating down to iterator with index 9. And we will be again aggregating the values, and the separator will be comma space. Right, so now we have nice text string, and then again we need to set a variable at the end, which will be called array-based answers. Array-based answers, and we will follow the similar pattern like before. So question underscore bundle order position from the first iterator, and then the actual text of the answers. Right, so question 2, and this is the result. So far so good, but now the question is how to actually handle these variables at the end, right? Like how to actually aggregate it into one final text string, which will be both answers to both questions as a one string. So the beauty of make is the fact that when you use router and you set variables within that route, you can actually access those variables by getting them. So we can introduce a third route, and we can say, not say, but we can use get multiple variables, and we can get collection-based answers as well as array-based answers. So let's run it and see what happens. Okay, so now we can see that we got this variable from the preceding route, and we also got the other variable from the preceding route. And the key thing to remember here is that the order of routes behind the router is executed in which you actually connected the route to the router. So I connected this one as the first one, this one was second, and this one was the third one. This means that when I run this route, or when make is running that route, these variables are already set and they are not blank, right? So that means that I'm safe to getting them. If, for example, let's say I unlink this and I connect it as the last one now, right? when you align, it will actually show you the order. So this is always good to use to make sure that you know which route goes when. So this one will be first, this one will be second, and this one will be third one. And in this case, we will not be able to get the collection-based answers because it's not set here yet when this is executed. So let's run this now and see that the results will not be great. So for the first operation, remember, like we are iterating through two answers. So this should be executed twice or attempted to be executed twice, as well as this one. But for first output of the setting of variables, we get empty, and for the second, we get results. The reason why this is empty is that when this ran the first question, which was the collection-based one, this route was not executed at all, right? So it basically just got nothing for that first variable, and at the same time it also got nothing for the second because it was only set after this was executed. For the second operation, it actually got the text strings, but how come, right? How come there are two? Well, the thing is that once you set a variable within the execution or cycle, you can actually get them later. So this means that when the second question was processed, this one array, it was finally set here, so it was possible to get it, right? This one. And this string is actually retrieved from that first iteration, not from the second one. So you can see that these results are quite inconsistent here, and you should not do it this way. The best approach is simply to, of course, use the correct order of the routes. So it would be this one. And also, you should be nulling the variables after the iterator. And this is what I mean. So we would set multiple variables, and just to be safe and get correct results for each answer, we would simply null it after each iteration, and that way you will know that you are starting fresh for each answer. So collection-based answers and null. So now, when we look at this, we get question number 1, which was the collection-based one. And here we get array-based answer question number 2. And the reason why now it's nice and clean is because after each iterations, we are starting fresh, and the route can either go this way or this way, right? So first time we get this, first time we get the collection, second time we get the array. I could reorder it to follow that pattern in the JSON. So this would be, oops, I did not meant to do that. So this would go first, this would go second, this would go third. So let's run one more time. So here we get question number 1 from the first operation, and here we get only question number 2 from the second operation. Because as I said, we get 2 questions, but only one route is executed for each, right? So when you get these variables, one is always going to be blank. And the way to do this right is, again, null the variables after you start iterating, so you start fresh, have the correct order of the routes, and then get those variables. All right. So now we can finally start putting together our final text string by, again, using the text aggregator. The source would be iterator number 3, and the text would be simply this or this, right? Because either of these is going to be filled out. The row separator will be new row. You can really leave it like this. And when we run it, should get the desired result. See, question number 1, question number 2. Exactly what we wanted at the beginning. Now, you could use Gmail module and basically mail this output via email or send it to Slack or whenever. So, to wrap up, this video was about 3 things basically. Handling inconsistent object types, introducing the set get variable approach, right? So you run a route, set variable, you run another route, you set a variable, then you get them via different route, and then you aggregate. So that was the second point. And the third point, which is also super useful, is this keys function for collections, which you somehow need to crawl through, like iterate through them, but since those are collections, you cannot directly use the iterator. So you gotta help it a bit. So you first get the keys, then you iterate through the keys, and you set a new variable by getting the actual key value from the original collection. And then you can form the final text string. So this is it. Yes, I realize it's not that simple, but once you master this concept, you can build pretty much anything in Make. And that's it. So if you have any questions or you need help, just let me know. And good luck automating and trying this yourself. Cheers.